Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making a delicious light and creamy cheesecake. So let's get started. First off, set your oven to 350 so it's nice and hot, and now in a large bowl I'm gonna add 1.5 cups or 180 grams of graham cracker crumbs. You have a couple choices though. You could buy graham cracker crumbs, pre-crumbed. You could use 12 full sheets of graham crackers and crumble them yourself. This way you can get some bigger pieces for more texture. Or you could use an equal amount of your favorite cookie. Biscoff or speculoos would be delicious in this. To my graham crackers, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, so give it a good mix. Now we're gonna add 1/4 cup or about 65 grams of unsalted butter. Pour that right in. Work this together with a spoon or your clean fingers until it's like a wet, sandy mixture. You don't wanna have big clumps of butter and lots of dry nonsense. That's not gonna work. So with just a little mixing, you can see we have a beautiful, like wet, sandy mixture that's perfect for our springform pan. Grab a 9-inch springform pan and we're gonna transfer our cookie crumbs right inside. Use your flat-bottomed measuring glass to create an even layer. Pop some over to the side, and then we're gonna press a little bit up the side, probably about 1 inch or so, so we have a partial side crust, not all the way up. If your crust is really high, it just makes it very crumbly and difficult when you have to cut into your cheesecake because it tends to collapse. And when I'm pressing, I'm turning a bit too. By the way, if you love delicious things, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I post 2 new recipes every single week, and there's always something delicious right around the corner. Once your crust is nice and compressed, pop it into the oven, 350 for 15 minutes, and you will smell when it's ready. In the meantime, we're gonna get our filling together. It comes together so quickly, and the key is to use room temperature ingredients. Into the bowl of my stand mixer, fitted with a paddle attachment, I'm adding 3 8-ounce room temperature blocks of cream cheese. If your cream cheese is cold, it's just not gonna incorporate really well with the other much softer, more liquidy ingredients, and that's gonna lead to lumps, which is gonna lead to cracks and just like cheesecake that's not how you want it to be. So warm it up in the microwave at half power until it is room temperature or even a little bit warm. Plop that into your bowl. If you want, you could definitely make this in a big bowl with the hand mixer. You'll just be using a lower power because you don't wanna whip a lot of air into it. You also wanna clean your spatula off. This often collects things that haven't been mixed really well, which once it gets back into your mixture will lead to lumps, cracks, and just bits of like cream cheese or sour cream that aren't mixed in with the sugar and vanilla. We're gonna mix this on medium-low for about a minute until it's nice and smooth. We're not gonna use high power today because if we whip a lot of air into it, those air bubbles will expand in the oven and lead to cracking, which just doesn't have the creamiest of consistencies. It changes the consistency as well as the look. Once your cream cheese is nice and creamy, I'm gonna scrape the bowl down and get to adding in more delicious ingredients. The first cheesecakes were actually invented thousands of years ago. Very different from what we have now though. You'd have fresh cheese pounded with flour and honey and then grilled. Different consistency, but throughout the centuries, cheese and something sweet go hand in hand to make a delicious treat. Into our mixture of sugar, I'm adding 1 cup or 200 grams of granulated sugar. Into my bowl of cream cheese, I'm adding 1 cup or 200 grams of granulated sugar. I'm gonna add this in while the mixer's running on low. Bloop, bloop, bloop. A lot of people get so in their heads about cheesecake when it's one of the simplest things to make. You just have to be careful of your oven temperature and the consistency of your ingredients, as well as the speed of your mixer. Very basic things, and once you have that, you're basically just whipping things, pouring it, and popping it into the oven. It's much simpler than a regular cake. For some contrast, I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a big pinch. There we go. For some lovely depth of flavor, I'm adding 2 teaspoons of vanilla, it's 10 mils. This looks amazing. The sugar does something magical. It makes it sweet, but it also makes it really soft. Look at that. It almost looks like frosting at this point. So you totally changed the consistency as the sugar's melted into the cream cheese. But the sugar has not gotten to the bottom of the bowl, so give it a good scrape. Continue mixing on low after you scrape the bowl down, and in the meantime, gather 1 magical ingredient, 1/2 cup of sour cream. This will lighten the cheesecake and give you a wonderful tang which complements the cream cheese and the sugar really nicely. But before we do that, we're gonna add 3 eggs in one at a time, and this is up to you, but I like to crack my eggs into a bowl. Give your eggs a mix just to break the yolks up really. If you want, you can crack them into your bowl one at a time or add them in thirds like I'm doing. Back to medium-low, add in 1 egg. You're gonna allow this to incorporate and then scrape the bowl down and repeat that 3 times. You'll be tempted to go on to high just to give it a good mix, but just don't do that. Nice and slow is the way to go. This looks beautiful and glossy, so now we're gonna scrape the bowl down. And you'll see some thicker, wider stuff coming up as you scrape. That's the unmixed stuff with no egg in it. And very importantly, while you do that, get some of this unmixed nonsense off of your paddle attachment. Continue mixing and add the next egg in. Give that a scrape. And now we're gonna add the last egg in. These eggs are all incorporated and my cake looks lovely, so it's time for our secret ingredient, that ½ cup of sour cream. We're gonna mix this on medium-low once more, and that ½ cup of sour cream was 120 grams in case you're using your scale. Let this mix for a minute or 2 on low to medium-low, and once it is silky smooth, give it a final check with your spatula and it's ready to pour. It's that easy. This type of cheesecake is based on cream cheese, and cream cheese was invented in New York fairly recently. So cheesecake as we know it really comes from the 1930s, spread out from New York and got tons of variations afterwards. There are different kinds like Basque cheesecake which predate that, but that's a different story. This looks lovely. Come take a look. You can see we have a uniform mixture, almost no lumps. Beautiful, you could see through the batter. Okay, it's time to pour your batter into your cooled crust. Ooh, that looks so nice. This cheesecake will keep up to 4 days in your fridge, but this is the perfect dessert to make ahead and freeze. You could freeze the whole cheesecake or leftover slices, just wrap them really well in multiple sheets of plastic wrap, pop them into the freezer for up to 3 months, then just defrost overnight in your fridge. You are going to be so happy when you have a whole cake on demand with very little notice. My cake is ready to go into the oven, 350 for 15 minutes, then reduce to 300 and bake for another ½ hour to 35 minutes or until the center wobbles slightly. If you're really paranoid about cracks or having like an oven that just is not on your side when it comes to cheesecakes, fill a 9-inch or 9 by 13-inch pan halfway full with really hot water and place that on the bottom rack of your oven and cook the cheesecake on the middle rack. This will steam up and give you a little bit of extra insurance, which I'll be using today, but it's optional. Once your cake has that slight wobble in the center, close the door and turn your oven off. Leave the cheesecake in there for an hour so it cools slowly. If you take it right out, the cheesecake is gonna crack and you'll be a little bit disappointed. After an hour, take it onto the countertop and let it cool to room temperature for about another hour. Then chill in your fridge for 6 hours or up to 3 days. You want the cheesecake to set so it doesn't fall apart. Let's get it out of the springform pan and get the top decorated. By the way, I treated myself and upgraded from my grocery store one to a fancy Nordic ware waterproof one. So this one can go into a water bath without any water seeping in. You don't have to cover it in tin foil anymore. And now, with confidence, slide it onto your cake plate. Yeah. Can we take a moment to notice the beautiful, unblemished, unburnt, perfect top of this cheesecake? This is ready for a cut, but you have so many choices. You could enjoy this plain. I'm gonna top this with a dollop of whipped cream and some fresh berries. The way that dissolves on your palate, it just gives you this shock of delicious flavor. Oh my gosh. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and check out my cheesecake playlist.